Hi, I'm Doug Henshin, VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, covering everything that takes you from data to decisions.
And I am Andy Thorai. Yep, that's Thorai with an AI, VP and Principal Analyst with Constellation Research, covering the AI and ML topic areas. And we are your co-anchors for episode 15 of Constellation Research TV.
And that's right, this is the Enterprise Tech Show where Constellation's research team shares the latest news, trends, and features on the enterprise.
And joining us later in the show will be our colleagues, the Miller twins, Holger Miller and Liz Miller.
That's right, Andy. And we'll start with a recap of enterprise news. And then Holger and Liz will have a short debate about customer experience and CRM. Is CR really a tech thing? Is CRM over? I'm looking forward to that debate. And that will be followed by what's next, Andy?
In our final segment, Doug will host a new segment called Onward and Upward with the Miller twins, Holger and Liz joining to discuss about the recent personal moves in the world of enterprise tech. But first, let's talk about the news. So, Doug, what is new happening in your world after the last episode of CRTV? Just to be clear, me joining as a co-host is not news.
That is news. We said goodbye to Nicole and hello to Andy as my co-host. Welcome, Andy. Well, July is usually a slow month for news, but last week we had the on-again, off-again rumors about SaaS getting acquired. Monday, Wall Street Journal, unnamed sources said talks were underway with Broadcom. That's the company that acquired CA. Said to be entertaining a $15 to $20 billion acquisition of SaaS to get deeper into the high margin software business and out of just chips. But then the very next day, Wall Street Journal, again, unattributed sources saying 78-year-old Jim Goodnight, seen here, the CEO and co-founder of SaaS, got cold feet along with his co-founder, John Saul, and that they had a change of heart. Of course, SaaS, $3 billion annual revenue, private company, a giant in analytics. This sort of had the feel of kind of a planted store to get interest in the company heated up. There's no heir apparent at SaaS. We've seen executives like Jim Davis and Oliver Schabenberger leave the company. There's really nobody to take over. It's speculation that the families want out. But why cold feet with Broadcom? Is SaaS a very generous company, 12,000 employees, a lot of speculation in the news that Broadcom would slash the staff and that, Jim Goodnight would not like that. And that's one reason for the cold feet. Andy, what do you think? We've also seen some détente with Microsoft in recent years. There are much closer ties with Microsoft these days.
Yeah, so, who knows? I mean, they're using this as a mechanism. I mean, he said the talks have broken off, sent an email to employees, but maybe they're using this as leverage to negotiate with either with Broadcom itself or maybe with other companies. The rumor has it that, they are talking to a couple of other companies. But on surface, Broadcom looks like a good company to acquire SAS because, they have done a good strategic acquisition. I mean, obviously CA for 19 billion and Symantec for 11 billion. They're growing into software business and SaaS is declining. So it's a good marriage in my viewpoint, right? So let's talk about the next topic that I want to discuss, malware. What do you feel about that? I mean, right now, malware is becoming a big nuisance. Particularly because Microsoft has found that there are latest attacks that are coming in from not by nation-owned attack groups, but from Israeli private companies. Sandru put devil's tongue and going after the consumer account. So, and then this is actually one of the topics that the healthcare CXOs brought up in our last week's summit in Vegas. They were talking about the fact that a few things. One is that if you get any procedure off late and the companies by using malware and others, they'll get personal information, go after some of the consumer accounts and threatening them, saying that if you don't give me money, I'm going to release all your information. And the fact that the most of the hospital equipment is becoming more of a software defined or software controlled devices, and a lot of them are not updated for the longest time. It's easy and prone to attacks. What do you feel about that?
Well, we had a little interview about this on episode 13 of CRTV with Wayne Sadin, a CXO who joins our CXO chats on a bi-monthly basis. He observed that a lot of companies falling prey to ransomware are really opening themselves by failing to do the fundamentals of security. So if you want a 101 on what you have to do to avoid becoming a victim of ransomware, just look on YouTube for my interview on CRTV with Wayne Sadin, Saydin. A great interview, which brings me to my second topic. The New York Times last week and a number of other outlets reporting that this 2020 mega trend of people leaving San Francisco, leaving Silicon Valley, leaving big cities for that matter, has been a bit exaggerated. They had this big feature story. They had a CEO of a company, Akash Networks, pictured here. After spending just even less than a year in Columbus, Ohio, he beat it back to San Francisco. Why? Because that's where the energy is. That's where the people are. Last week, as Andy mentioned, we were in Vegas, and there were like a handful of tech companies we met with there, and they were like so eager to hear about, oh, really? There's another company in Vegas? Even in these towns like Austin and Raleigh, even Silicon Valley and New York, I think there's just still this energy and this focus of companies in the Silicon Valley and San Francisco that will have people coming back. For that matter, I think we're going to see people waking up in these exurbs a couple of years in their Zoom towns when work from home is over, and they're going to, why am I commuting all this way back to the center of things? And we're going to see a resurgence back to the cities.
All right. I want to talk about another topic, though. Alina Khan, the FTC chair. Okay. Yep. So she hasn't even started yet. And the big tech is going after her. I mean, Facebook asked her to be removed from investigating or making decisions, at least, about the tech platforms. And Amazon did the same thing for about a week. This is all based on the fact that, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, she wrote a paper, a 100-page paper document on Yale Law Journal, Amazon's antitrust paradox, right? That's about 3 years dated. But it was not about Amazon, though. So unfortunately, even though it was named as Amazon's antitrust, it was a case study, right, that she was doing. In my mind, look, I get that. You shouldn't or you cannot over-regulate and kill innovation, because when you over-regulate, it kills innovation. That's the bottom line, especially when government gets involved. But there has to be guardrails. You need to set policies and rules and regulations in place for it to work, right? And the funniest thing is, Khan didn't even go after the big tech companies to begin with. If you look at some of the work which she has done, she started talking to chicken farmers about their experiences and what you need to do about seeds and patterns and Monsanto. She actually started off in the agriculture industry. In my view, she is very pro-innovation, pro-worker, pro-small business, pro-challenging the way we approach inequality. And just to make a point on that, the funniest thing is, people say that doesn't happen in the tech industry. The big giants, the companies, SAS is one we talked about, IBM is one we talked about. They look at competition all the time. And when they see somebody who's coming up and doing something innovative and trying to kill their business, they're going to go and acquire them and then, kill the innovation. Part of it at times. I mean, rarely ever it works out when you're a small innovative company going into a big company's arms, that you will change everything in. Red Hat is a good example of changing IBM's culture, but it rarely ever happens. But now my view is that whether or not that's going to happen, they cast a shadow of doubt, like the political leaders do, whether she is fair or not, because she will be the deciding vote when it comes down to whether you go after these companies. What do you think?
Andy, I think the key point of Alina Khan's research is that the old antitrust measures, looking at just price and output, just aren't up to today's internet era when these companies are building these networks. These online platforms become these crucial intermediaries. They have these platforms that can exploit information really important point in Ray Wang's latest book. You should check it out. Everybody Wants to Rule the World. It's how these companies, they forget about profitability and price and this sort of thing. They're willing to give up money to fuel growth and to have these dominant platforms. And that, you're right, it applies not just in tech. It's about airlines, it's about pharma, it's about agriculture, it's big business and big networks gaming the system. And I think even if certainly Amazons and Facebooks have enough lawyers and legal money to tie up regulators, but I think there has to be a fundamental rethink on antitrust and business and competition today. And that's a good reason to check out Ray's book. Listen, that's all the time we have for this week's news summary. So let's turn to Holger and Liz in a debate about CX and CRM.
So yeah, what did you want to talk about? The European Soccer Championships, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Why did Italy win?
No, you're trying to pick a fight with me over CX and CRM. That's what we're here to talk about.
Oh man, why do you keep us on track, right? I'm trying to produce bloopers here. Okay, fine.
I'm fairly certain that any conversation between the two of us around CRM and CX is going to have plenty of bloopers.
Probably.
Well, don't worry. Earlier today, I actually typed the phrase that bad CRM implementations reminded me of Quado waiting around for Quaid to arrive. Do you remember that movie Total Recall, Holger?
Yeah.
Where Quado was that he was that little weird baby guy that was
who comes out of something, right? He lives inside of someone.
Right. He's basically just like a parasite.
Yep.
Yeah, it's bad CRM. Quado.
What is CRM? What's CX? CX is the bad parasite inside of CRM.
CX is a strategy, dude. Stop calling it a technology. I swear.
Strategies have to materialize.
It's not a technology.
Okay, so CX is when the Quado guy does customer-friendly stuff.
No, CX is like the movement that everyone spray paints Quado on the wall, right? Because CX is a strategy, right? It's a strategy that everyone's supposed to get behind. Because there's only one piece of technology that actually manages customer experience.
And
only one. It's called a human being. It's called the customer.
Oh, and about a little bit of CRM software.
Well, yeah, you do that using CRM software, but no software. And let's be real, CRM software. There's a whole raft of things we can discuss when it comes to CRM.
Are you saying it's not good? Are you saying it's not great? Are you saying it's not the best thing since sliced bread?
Stop it right now, because half the CRM out there is really just relabeled or white labeled SFA, and you and I both know it. Right, so if something's an SFA tool, and if something's a Salesforce automation tool, just call it an SFA tool. Stop trying to call it a relationship manager, because all of a sudden you wanted to feel better about it.
But what if the SFA tool would tell the salespeople to spray paint CX on walls?
Well, then we're really in trouble, because then we're really at a point where the overlords are coming in for infinite ambient orchestration, and toasters really are.
Don't mention that. If Ray hears this, then we're gonna be totally orchestrated ambientally, environmentally, safely. Hopefully not. I don't know what happens.
Right. Well, then we got to have a whole sustainability conversation about spraying paint.
I love the Latin words ambient, right, which is nice, which reminds me why I learned 6 years of Latin, which otherwise is not useful. But I always get told, keep it simple. So for me, it's like always on.
Right, but keeping it, exactly. Well, always on is always on, right? But let's be real about something about CRM software, right? The intention of CRM software, I personally believe, is actually quite good, right? It's supposed to be that window into the relationship an organization has with its customers, regardless of who, in theory, is part of that relationship, right? So if it initiates with sales and then is touched by service or is touched by marketing, all of that goes into that record about the relationship. Right. The problem is that CRM became the hot potato tool that everyone wants to use as the centerpiece of the don't touch my button game, right? No, I'm sales. I own the CRM system. I'm the only one that can add it. I own the customer, right?
The customer, right?
that concept of ownership around, oh, well, I'm going to own all of this, and so you can't have any of it, that's the detrimental piece, right? CRM in and of itself isn't a horrible technology. It's the culture war that happens around it that's turned it, unfortunately, when we start to talk about the execution of customer experience strategy, right? When you start to center that strategy and that point of execution around CRM, you have to start stripping away the layers of the onion of the culture wars that have turned CRM into a giant brick that just sits in the center, dragging relationship down. It's not the tool that's bad, right? It's not the code that you look at and are like, oh, dang, that's awful.
The irony is, right, and I love CRM, I've built CRM systems for a long, long time, is, right, nothing happens in the real world if it happens in CRM. Right?
Okay,
so you create a customer, but this customer will never be shipped to, will never get something invoiced, will never get anything, right? Because nothing happens CRM. Sales rep wins an opportunity, right? Maybe even closes an order. That order will never be fulfilled because CRM, right? The sales rep will not even get paid for winning that, for forecasting, setting that opportunity to one, right? So that's the irony of CRM being this auxiliary, ancillary system which sits on front of the systems which make it happen, which as unsexy as they sound are the ERP systems. So the traditional way of working of CRM does nothing for the real world, and with that, by definition, can't do anything for CX.
Oh, totally. I mean, the reality is when I say that it's an anchor around the neck of the customer, it absolutely is. But here's the bad part. We made it the heaviest anchor in the organization, right? The customer didn't. The customer wasn't sitting there like, I really hate CRM. I wish I wasn't in the CRM system. It's us, like we, the human beings in it. There's a reason why no one wanted to use SFA, right? There's a reason why, and Holger, you and I remember these days. Remember the days when it was
SFA? Salespeople like SFA.
No, remember when it was called sales forced automation?
Oh, the forced one, yeah.
Right?
So
remember
when let's do some history on the acronym, right? This is why CAS, computer aided selling, right? Don't bother me with technology. I'm just being aided by technology to make it.
I'm being aided, but it's not going to take over my job. So I'm gonna game the system, right? I often tell a story of like a shared workspace where I heard these guys, I mean, young guys are probably like 23, 24 years old. This is their first job they've ever had in the Silicon Valley. And they're sitting there playing ping pong because that's what we do. And they're sitting there actively talking about how they're going to get around CRM. Oh, I found a way to change the entries in CRM so I can change the date of my first call. We spend so much time and energy finding ways around a tool because we've misunderstood what that tool is meant to do and where it sits in the overarching strategy, right? So if just getting something sold is the center point of your CRM and the center point of your CX solution, we've got bigger problems. We probably have to talk, right? But in this age where the customer is like, why I placed my order through that online thing that you had, and then 5 people called me because I filled out a form, and now you're trying to sell me something else. It's really easy to blame marketing in that conversation.
It's always marketing's fault.
Right, it's always marketing's fault.
It's always marketing.
Blame marketing. I mean, that's your MO.
Because the lead was bad, right? The lead was badly qualified.
Right, the lead was horribly qualified. It wasn't really a lead. Oh my gosh, why did they send that email? When in reality, we never sat down and actually came up with a CRM strategy because we didn't have a relationship building strategy, right? We didn't talk about CRM as being the mode to get to a durable, persistent relationship. We talked about it being a durable, persistent record.
Let me try something on you here. Is your ERP system more relevant for CX than your CRM system? Because things like goods get shipped, you know when they will get shipped, they are delayed, they get replaced, they can't be manufactured, you get invoiced, you get a special time discount, whatever. All that happens in ERP. So is ERP more relevant for CX than CRM?
Ooh, Holger, you hit on it. Oh, you did it. You went there. My hot take on it. Yeah. And it starts to realize the vision I think a lot of organizations have had for a long time when we've talked about living organizations, right? So all of a sudden, if we start to think of our CX strategy as truly putting the customer at the center of our stack and working outwards from there, our ERP solutions have to be in that conversation, right? Our supply chain solutions. But here, I'm going to toss another one out there, Holger. our HCM solutions have to be.
What HCM? That has nothing to do with it. No, just kidding. What do you say?
HCM solutions, right? Why in the world would we look at a CX strategy and not bother to figure out where our HCM tools actually fit in that, right? Because if all of a sudden we've got massive amounts of churn in that front line that's actually engaging with our customer, we're recruiting the wrong people, we're actually setting them up with the wrong tools, we're not seeing the level of efficiency and proficiency and training that we need to have in there. We have no legacy system that takes the unstructured data that is the employee's content and bringing that back into the organization. Yep. What are we doing? We're just spinning our wheels. So this kind of new view of CX, it's actually more about the tools we've been ignoring than the one single tool we put at the center of all of this. I think that's why you're seeing things like CDP become so hot, right? Because it's like
CDP to me is the acknowledgement of remaking the same mistake. Right? Remember, I mean, I was SAP.
I agree.
Right? We built the separate CRM solution because the ERP customer said, don't touch my ERP. It's on a multi-year rollout. If you put it in there, I'm going to buy somebody else. It has to be separate. Don't touch the ERP train, right? And now I'm surprised that we still talk about CDP instead of understanding that you must solve the R. But what defines the relationship, right? What defines the relationship ultimately? Your relationship to your family is different than your relationship to your colleagues, than to your friend. Right. But ultimately, if you have to describe it in the system to me, and that's where the R is so important in ERP, it is with resources, right? Yep. Who manage these resources, right? This is why your point from the HCM started. As long as people are involved in creating CX, HR systems are relevant because they know the human resource, terrible word, right? But the skills and capabilities of the people, so you can put the right people in the right place to create, hopefully, the right CX with the help of a CRM system.
I agree. Wow, we really wanted to fight on this one, huh? But we keep ending up in the same
place. We have to agree here.
I know.
We keep it not entertaining, but hopefully very informational.
Welcome to Onward and Upward, a new segment in which we explore recent personnel moves in the tech industry. We're here to celebrate success, and in that spirit, I'll kick off with Kate Wright, formerly head of augmented analytics at SAP, getting a well-deserved bump up to Senior Vice President of Product Development at Tableau. A great move up. Kate is a really sharp cookie. She did a great job with the smart features within the SAP Analytics Cloud, so a good move up in the BI space. What do you got next, Liz?
Well, you know what? For everyone that joins a Salesforce company, I think we got to talk about someone who leaves, right? But, talk about a really impressive move. Datadog just got a real platform dog adding into their stable with Adam Blitzer departing Salesforce and joining the observability giant, right? So they want to be a giant platform over at Datadog. They don't just want to be an observability or security tool anymore. They're going for that platform play. And arguably, Adam Blitzer is one of those guys that can take them there. Adam, listen, if you can take email and land a platform, Adam's the guy that did it, right? So going from Pardot to ExactTarget, then over to Salesforce. He ended his tenure at Salesforce really running that entire portfolio of marketing commerce. So listen, I think Adam's a great move there. But listen, it's not the only move of someone who's going to be going from a super cool hot brand over into trying to remake something that's a platform. And I think that's Carrie Palin, who has left Splunk. I mean, talk about a hot brand and a hot brand builder. Carrie has taken that to become the CMO at Cisco. So the question there is going to be, listen, she's no brand rookie. I mean, she has been with impressive brands. She's been with IBM. She's been at Dell. She's been at Box. She has taken a lot of organizations and really injected them with both brand and growth driving. She sees this really from a sales enablement perspective. So she's going to have a lot to do and a lot to say there. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But talk about
serious glasses envy on Carrie. I got serious, we all glass wearers. I have serious glasses envy on her.
Serious glass envy. You're up next. We got a little departure over at SAP, yeah?
Yeah, it's a little longer ago, but still relevant. Gerrit Katzmeier, who was kind of like the right hand from Hasso Plattner's side, right? You know the right hand of Hasso Plattner when you do a keynote with him at Sapphire, which Gerrit did 2 years ago at Sapphire 2019. And he had the keys to the kingdom in terms of HANA and analytics, but he went off to Google, followed probably Rob Enslin, who's there on the sales side, and really brings together all the data analytics and Looker acquisition at Google. So congratulations to him to move to Silicon Valley.
It's a cool move. Now, talk about some other moves.
A lot of movement at SAP there.
Yeah, it's a lot of movement at SAP, but we've also got a lot of upward stuff, right? So folks who have been in organizations for a really long time and are now getting the nod to move up the ranks. And I think I've got a great example. I mean, I think when you've been in an organization for about 21 years, you get to be the CMO at that point, right? And that's the case with Jennifer Chase. So she is the newly minted CMO at SAS. Now, talk about taking on an interesting time to be over at the data giant, right? There's got a lot of rumors swirling around about who's going to buy whom, where is SAS going to land. But Jennifer is one of those really unique CMOs that has really started from within. And you know what, guys? She started on the AR team. Just saying. So started in the AR team. She shot up through the ranks. She has really driven growth first in a North America role. She expanded that footprint to a global role. And she's really been doing a good job bringing that global kind of unified growth strategy across SAS's portfolio. So it's going to be exciting to see what she does as a CMO, especially when they are really at the center of probably one of the biggest rumor mills growing right now. But here's my favorite upwards one. And I'm gonna throw this out there as a new title. Okay, Holger, Doug, let me know if you agree. Best arms in enterprise software, Sarah Franklin.
Oh, right? She's got guns.
My girl's got guns, but she's also got street cred, and she is the new CMO over at Salesforce. And I love this move. I can't say how much, because you know what? Sarah is one of those increasing blueprint type executives for that future of a CMO role. Listen, she started an engineer. She served as a sales engineer. She understands developers. But this is the most exciting part about her background for me. Trailhead. She understands community. She has created community for an audience of engineers and developers, and now she's going to be the voice of the customer in the C-suite for Salesforce. That is a really, really powerful position to be in, and she's got the arm guns to back it up. So listen, I'm going to say, watch for Sarah Franklin, because this is a really interesting blueprint for a CMO, and it's an interesting blueprint for people who are on that upward trajectory within an organization to have that level of expertise around all those different functions. And bringing customer and community to the core of that's some pretty intoxicating stuff. But Holger, I'm going to send it back to you, because you know what? In the theme of what's happened at SAP.
Right. So back to SAP in a second, but we need a better picture of Sarah, obviously, to give credibility to the and the CMO job in the industry is certainly with Uber CMO Mark Benioff there. So wishing her luck and all the best. Right. She's going to do great there. So back to SAP, where there was another departure on the board level. Adair Fox-Martin, who I know since 20 plus years from my time at Oracle, who went through the public sector side, the vertical side for Asia-Pac, jumped ship to SAP a long time ago, ran Asia-Pac, then run the world together with Jennifer Morgan, then took over the world after Jennifer Morgan became co-CEO, delivered the numbers despite being potentially disappointed not becoming a CEO, co-CEO model after that, and also bolted over to Google to run Europe, Middle East, Africa, having relocated back to Europe. So I think it's going to be a fun time. She has a Rolodex of all the SAP customers. So I think we'll hear great things from Adair over there at Google Cloud.
Yeah, and let's go ahead, Liz.
I was going to say, I love that move because, right, she's got the APAC experience. She's bringing in that high growth market, especially out of Africa. That's going to be a really huge thing for Google Cloud, especially as they're looking to be super competitive in a market that's just beginning to take off. So that Africa market, I mean, I just think she's going to knock it out of the park. I love it.
And if it's any indication how her former and new boss, Rob Enslin, is significantly more relaxed running Google Cloud as a president than running SAP as a president, it says something of the strength of products and how much gray hair it gives to sales executives there. So she should be much more relaxed person than SAP.
Unless we think there's a brain drain at SAP. On the cutting room floor, we had Julia White going from Microsoft to SAP, Claire Henry, the AR honcho, very high level moves into SAP. But I'm going to close out with a sad story about somebody who is a real innovator in virtual assistants. And I'm sure Liz and Holger will agree that this guy was way ahead of his time, way back in 1997. But he was fired in 2001, and now, after 20 years in the wilderness, his former employer has finally brought him back. That's right, Microsoft last week announced the return of Clippy, although in a very unglamorous role of emoji. That's right. After being at the vanguard of AI, Clippy was reduced to the digital equivalent of a Walmart door greeter as an emoji.
Clippy is dead. Long live Clippy.
No, long live Clippy. Clippy forever, people. Hashtag it. I'm right here.
Exactly.
He's going to be an emoji coming to Teams, Skype, and other Microsoft apps soon.
I'm gonna use that every day.
Clippy is going to create the one Microsoft.
I'm gonna use Clippy every day. Clippy is the C-suite model right there. Clippy never dies. Good one, Doug.
That's a wrap on this edition of Onward and Upward. So spruce up your resume and see you next time.
Well, that's a wrap on episode 15 of Constellation Research TV. Get set for our next episode coming up in 2 weeks.
That's right. Join co-hosts Liz Miller and Holger Mueller on Wednesday, August 4th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And in the meantime, follow us on Twitter at ConstellationR, on LinkedIn, and follow the hashtag CRTV. That's all for now. Thanks for watching and have a great week. Okay.
Is a light from this side is bothering?
I just see a little bit of flare right where your finger is.
Right there, yeah.
If you can lose the flare, that'd be...
I think this should be okay. But how about my voice? So this particular headset doesn't work. That's why I got the other one. I mean, it has
you're good.
Do you want me to hang on before we go? Do you want me to reduce the lighting overall a little bit? It's a
fine.
little. All right.
Hi, I'm Doug Hansen. What?
Sorry, I thought I was going. Okay, go.
No. Hi, I'm Doug Hansen, VP and Principal Analyst, covering everything.
AI and ML topics, and we are your co-anchors for everything.
Has everybody heard the AI? Sorry, Andy.
And we are your co-anchor. What the hell? I couldn't get anchors right.
Constellation Research, covering everything it takes you. Blah blah blah. Man, we are going to be going for 10:45 at this thing.
Get set for our next episode coming up in 2 weeks.
Andy, that's the outro at the end of the show.
Oh,
I was just doing the segment.
Okay.
Anna, can you cut that? And by the way, Holger, you need to readjust your camera because you've got.
I need to see what cutout we'll have. But I'll zoom more closer. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm in the wrong spot. I needed to be in the upper right corner.
Doug needs to move.
Record that for the bloopers.
Thank you.
Right?
My life is a blooper, Holger, so it really doesn't take that much.
Okay. All right. In 3, 2, 1. Well, that's a wrap. I gotta do it again. All right. 3, 2, 1.
All right, people. I am out of here.
Peace out. Go have a panini.
Peace out. Have your lunch, breakfast, dinner, whatever.